This is my Buick Roadmaster. And these are the floors, which in their current condition can best be described as Swiss cheese. But with the help of a cheap welder and some patience, I'll make it go from this to this. Yes, that's right. MIG's ugly stepchild Flux core can be a viable solution for any shade tree mechanic with just a dash of willful ignorance. Alongside the Harbor Freight welder is Harbor Freight wire. It's 30 thousandths in size, and here are the settings that I'm using as a baseline. I more or less stick to them. Now, to preface this, I am not a welder. I'm just a guy with a welder. I've dabbled with MIG welding in the past, however, I've never done sheet metal, much less floor pans. And this is my first time using gasless flux core. Against the better judgment of my welder friends, I'm gonna try my best and learn along the way. Whether that makes me bold or dumb is up to you. But hey, if I can do it, so can you. Alright, now let's get into it. Highlighted here are the three main areas of concern that I need to cut out and replace with fresh metal. I'll first tackle this hole on the driveshaft tunnel. It'll serve as a practice run before I attempt the main floor section so I can dial in the welder settings and my technique. Here you can see me hammering a piece of sheet metal into shape using the driveshaft tunnel as a mold. It worked surprisingly well. Now, the welding technique basically looks like this. I'm butt welding the two panels together, and it's more or less tack welding over and over. Running long beads is difficult and ill-advised on metal this thin, as blowing through can happen in an instant. Ask me how I know. Later on though, I do find a technique that works to lay short half-inch long beads. More on that in a bit. It's definitely a tedious process. I made my way around the entire panel, alternating sides to prevent warping. And eventually the perimeter was filled completely. Drumroll please. Well, that looks like shit. Feel free to let me know in the comments how bad my welds are, and that I'm stupid and ugly and should jump off a bridge for even trying. But that's okay. Trust the process, or at least that's what I keep telling myself. Nothing a bit of grinding can't solve anyway. At least the welds have good penetration and appear strong, even holding up to numerous kicks and hammer blows as a sanity check. Alright, it's getting there. Still looks like a robot sneezed on it, but it's better than it was before, so I'll take it. Now on to the main event. Here lies my main issue. Originally I thought I'd be able to patch small panels here and there on this piece, but this entire section is compromised, including the metal surrounding the seat mount, which is a serious safety concern. So, I guess I've gotta replace the entire floor panel. Fun. With the cancer removed, I began to fit the Arizona Fresh junkyard panel I pulled to replace it. For this section, rather than butt welding the perimeter, I went for a lap joint instead, which gives me more margin for error if my welds aren't perfect, and it's significantly easier than cutting a panel to perfectly fit the hole I cut. Now here's a trick for lap joints I learned for sheet metal. Get yourself a pry bar, something similar, to press down on the metal where you want to weld. This will ensure the two surfaces have good contact, which greatly helps with getting your tack welds to penetrate. And before you say anything about the stick out on my welder, there's a good reason for that. Another trick I learned for flux core specifically. See how the end of the wire soaks up the heat? By extending the wire to different lengths, it acts as somewhat of an amperage control on the fly. I was struggling a lot with blow through on these lap joints, but by doing this, I was able to control my heat and get just the right amount of penetration. You can also increase your amperage on your machine and adjust your distance accordingly. Just experiment with it and find what works for your situation. Using this technique also allowed me to run short beads, like you could see here, instead of doing just one tack at a time. And that definitely sped things up and kept me mostly sane throughout this process. Overall, it's a lot of trial and error. I don't know how many times I had to go back over welds to fix mistakes like you see me doing here. Back and forth, checking the welds, cleaning them, fixing them, over and over for hours. Did I mention how tedious this process is? Oh, here is a fun mistake I made. Turns out measure once, cut twice was the wrong motto. I ended up with about a half-inch gap on this back corner. But if you use your welder like a 3D printer, no gap is too big. And with the power of editing, I sped through it in no time. And so there you have it. A complete amateur can in fact brute force their way through a floor pan replacement with just a flux core welder from Harbor Freight. Are the results perfect? No. Did it take forever? Yes. Is my back completely destroyed from hunching over this godforsaken floor for hours on end, week after week? Yes. But it's now a perfectly functional, rust-free floor that I can proudly say I fixed myself. Now, I know it won't be winning any awards anytime soon. Oh, what's this? I'm flattered. Now, if only I could read. Anyway, here you can see the welds under the car. It appears they've penetrated well enough at least 95% of the time, so I'm confident the job will last. But of course, I didn't stop there. I spent some time grinding the welds flat, mostly so I can see where there was any porosity, and so that my seam sealer will lay nice and flat, which is what I'm about to do next. I've gone with the poor man's seam sealer, marine grade Loctite. Salt-proof, waterproof, and paintable. This is a boat after all. I also went ahead and applied rust converter to any remaining surface rust, then primed with Rust-Oleum Rusty Metal Primer before painting the entire floor with white enamel. Needless to say, I'm very happy with the results. Heck, I'd wager it's got more rust protection now than it did when it left the factory. Now overall, is FluxCore the best option for a job like this? Probably not, but it is an option, even for an inexperienced hobbyist who just wants to take matters into their own hands and keep a tight budget. So if you're on the fence, here's your push just to get out there and try it. Learn a new skill and fix your shitbox already. Thanks for watching.